Hey, what's up? This is Chosen. Happy middle of the week to you. And this is going to be a Raid Shadow Legends video going over some big events happening this weekend. We've got a 10x event for 4 different Void legendaries, which really never happens. So I'll show you where these legendaries rank, and we'll talk about some of the math and the numbers behind this 10x event happening this weekend. We're wrapping up the Newt Fusion, and while we're here, we'll cover all of the other stuff happening in the Raid game and community. Let's get into it. Alrighty, now also, first of all, there is an event going on today. There's a 5th Void Legendary involved. We've got a 10x chance from Void Shards today for the new champion introduced because of the Call of the Arbiter series, and that is going to be Valkynin. Now, Valkynin is a really interesting one. He's tough to grade effectively. He's got some cool things that he can do with like the Hydra and preventing the heads of, consuming somebody if he kind of blocks it by killing them, let you like, save them and revive them and save a bunch of turns in your composition. He's a lot better if you manual him in like the Hydra and the live arena and all that, so he requires a little bit more attention to get consistent value out of. But in my first initial gradings of him, I did kind of put him over here a little bit towards the top, not maybe like a top 5 god tier Void legendary, but definitely pretty solid as long as you kind of have him in the right situation to really make his kit shine. But do I think for most of you it makes sense to pull a bunch of shards outside of a 2x and outside of a guaranteed for Void Shards? I would say for 90-something% of you, it probably is a better idea to just go ahead and skip the Valkynin 10x. But that's not all. Starting tomorrow, they are going to be doing an event where we're getting all of the Supreme Void Legendaries as part of a 10x. So the Supreme Void Legendaries are going to be Supreme Kayle, Supreme Galek, Supreme Aethel, and Supreme Elaine. And if you're curious about where they rank, right now I've got Kayle and Galek right here. And then we've got Supreme Elaine right there. And then we've got Aethel, or Ethel, I guess we learned with the series. It's going to be impossible for me to remove 4 years of programming in my brain of calling her Aethel to now trying to go with Ethel. But that is going to be the 4 different ranks that I have. We've got Supreme Kayle first right here, and then Supreme Galek second, Supreme Elaine third, and then Supreme Ethel fourth right there. Now, none of them really grading out in the god tier or anything. 2 of them pretty solid. Supreme Elaine, a pretty niche damage dealer. She can hit hard. She can do some fun things in live arena or stuff like that. And poor Supreme Ethel just quite didn't have the kit to bring her up to snuff with the current raid meta. So again, does it make sense to pull a bunch of Void Shards outside of a 2x, outside of a CVC, outside of a Fragment, outside of a Fusion, nothing really going on? I would say in order for it to make sense, one of these champions would need to be somewhere up in this top tier of champions, and it would need to be like less of them involved because it kind of skews the math when you have 4 champions being part of a 10x. It's not like the Acrisia 10x where it becomes a lot more realistic because there's a lot less champions with Void Shards, so the 10x's are actually way more impactful. But when you pull in like Supreme Ethel to dilute the pool, all of a sudden it makes that 10x event a lot worse. And to visualize this for you, this is a chart kind of visualization that I made back when they did a 10x for Acrisia. And you can see how impactful it is on Void Legendaries when you only have 1 champion in there. Because look at this. Look at all of these instances. This is like if you summon a Legendary, what are the odds of it being Acrisia? Look at all of these that Acrisia kind of takes up, and then all of these that aren't Acrisia. So your odds are actually a lot more decent compared to most of Plarium's events for target farming one of those champions. Well, not target farming, but target YOLOing one of those champions that you're hoping to go for. But now it would be way different with all of the 4 Supreme Champions being in there instead of just 1. And the way that these 10x events work is they 10x the instances of that champion appearing in the pool. So just for like easy figures, there's about 50 Void Legendaries. The normal rates would be 1 over 50. Like if you pull a Legendary, there's a 1 out of 50 chance. Well, what they do is they take it from 1 over 50 to like 10 over 60. So just doing some quick napkin math here with the 10x. If you were going for like Supreme Kayle or something and you pull a Void Legendary during all 4 of them boosted, your odds are going to be somewhere around 10%, give or take a few decimals. So if you actually like pull a Void Legendary during it, the odds of it being, let's say you're going for Supreme Kale, odds would be about 10%. So I don't think I think it's going to be a little bit too diluted, and there's no 2x or anything going on. So again, with none of them being like a top 5, a Krigia or a Yumiko type of like specialty champion, I would say probably, again, similar to the Valkyrin one going on today, the best decision for probably 90-something% of you is to go ahead and pass and hold off, because we're probably going to be getting a new fusion or fragment event announced pretty soon now that Newt is coming to a close. And speaking of, I did get my Newt finished, so I've been working on him here during CBC. I will definitely get some content and some video footage and some infographics and all of that out here soon on the channel about Newt, doing a more deep dive guide and insight on him as a champion. And would you look at that, we've got enough points here, or enough crystals, to do a Prism Shard summon. And speaking of which, I did a poll on the channel. Shout out to the over 8,000 of you. Really good turnout on this poll here with a new summoning mechanic coming to the game. But we had a 65-35 ratio. People leaning towards a negative sentiment when I asked, is your first impression of the new Prism Shard summoning system positive or negative, just in an overall first initial view. And 65% of people saying negative, and I would say I probably lean in that direction as well. I think it's probably overall a net positive, which ends up being my take always, which is super annoying with Raid. It's like, okay, overall, it's probably a good thing it got added, but it got added poorly, and I would have done it differently, and I wish the prices weren't so absurd. That ends up being my take 99% of the time, which is really lame. I hate to have the same opinion every time, but it's true. I think the prices are pretty underwhelming when you compare it to things like Ancient Shards and some of the more stable things in the Plarium market. But overall, I mean, like, I'm just getting a couple, 2 or 3 pulls that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So it's like technically a net positive, as long as you just kind of take your free summons and roll with it. Like right here, I've got enough to do one, and I'm gonna just pop off a legendary for free here from the crystals that I was able to get. No, we got a rare right there. So yeah, that was kind of to be expected. The rates are kind of low, and your ability to get them is pretty underwhelming, and the prices are pretty absurd. So even though it's technically a net positive, I'm gonna have to agree with some of the polling, and I'm gonna have to lean towards like just having like a negative sentiment overall, even though I can hear the argument for it being positive as well. As far as the game stuff going on, CVC is going to be wrapping up today, obviously, so make sure you're kind of contributing your points there to help out the team. And then on the clan bosses, we have a new iteration of Hydra keys and all of that on reset. Plus, the Doom Tower, we are under a week left. You've got about 5 days left on the Doom Tower, so make sure you're going through and you're doing all of the secret rooms and everything involved with the Doom Tower to get as much progress as you can before that resets here in about 6 days. If we go over the tournaments and events, it looks like Plarium is absolutely in love with these turn attack tournaments. They're just doing them all over the place constantly now, so that looks like what it is going to be. And this spider one, because of it coinciding with CVC, we are getting some absolutely bonkers numbers on these tournaments. So this might be the highest participation rate I've ever seen in a tournament. So usually, if you're not familiar here with the channel, when I go over analyzing tournaments, I usually call participation rate the amount or the percentage of players that are over 1,000 points. And it's usually somewhere around 10%. You'll get put in groups of 100, and the participation rate will be somewhere around like 10 players that are over 1,000 points. Well, on this one, look at this. We have look at that, nice. We have a 69% participation rate on the spider turn attack, because there's the new summoning mechanic up for grabs on both the guaranteed side and over on the competition side. And then also it's during a CVC and all of that during a boosted drop fever event going on for lots of it, where you can get an ancient shard over here as well for finishing in the top 5 and all of that. So 69% participation rate. Most of the groups out there are going to be somewhere between like 50 and 75%. So an insanely highly sought after tournament that's going to be really tough to finish high in. And since this Prism Shard event is going to be going on for a few days yet, I'm going to guess that this Dragon turn attack is going to be similar to the Spider turn attack, where they're going to have crystals on both sides of it, both the guaranteed and the competition side of it, and that'll launch tomorrow. We also have a champion training tournament starting tomorrow here, featuring the Newt artwork and all of that. And what it's showcasing is the fact that there's going to be a Newt Fire Knight skin up for grabs, and I'm assuming that'll be like on the competition side, where if you win the tournament or finish top 2 or whatever, you'll get this Newt champion skin. And you can actually see it in game if you go to the dwarves and you head on over to Newt, and then you tab over here to the champion skins right here. This is going to be the Fire Knight skin for Newt that will be up for grabs tomorrow in that champion training event. It's definitely a cool skin. I like it. I like how his like top knot there on his hair is flaming. That's super cool. The weapon looks amazing. You got that like Fire Knight shield here with the eyes and the spikes. So definitely a really, really cool skin. Obviously, Raid never has a problem doing a good job on the aesthetic type stuff, but probably going to be a pretty tough one to win that not a whole lot of the player base is going to get. I wish they would put it on the guaranteed side of things. Like if you get to a certain amount of points in the Fire Knight, you're guaranteed to get this skin, but they're probably going to lock it behind competing with other players for it. So, okay, let's fire up the shop and see if there's anything worth going over here today. The contender pack, this is a pretty typical one. Nothing super noteworthy there. The blessings, this looks to be the normal prices here. Okay, so nothing noteworthy. Obviously, void shards, but this is the void shard stuff is super consistent. It's usually going to be around like a 0.9 to a 1.2 in terms of value. The multi-battle pack, we know the drill on that one. The monthly, the mini mix with the prism crystals instead of the ancient shard or the mortal soulstone. The sacred, well, you know, this is technically by Plarium's standards a pretty good offer, because usually your sacreds are about $20 or $25, but with this one you're getting a legendary tome and 1,000 energy to boot. That's why I've got a purchase limit of 1, is because Plarium considers this to be a good pack and pretty well above the cut of average in terms of what they usually send out, but it's like it still doesn't feel like good enough value for me quite. And then the prism crystals, this is kind of like the normal prices there, the $5 per pull. So there we have it. Good luck in CVC and everything going on in game right now. And good luck if you're pulling this weekend for any of the 10x events. Let me know if you are down below. I always appreciate hearing your insight on the polls and in the comment section and all of that. So it would mean a lot to earn your sub today if you enjoy daily Raid Shadow Legends content. But I will see you soon in the next video. Appreciate you. Peace.